Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Jeremy here. And guys, I'm very excited for the conversation we have today as I have Dr. Jonathan Spages with me. He's been on several of my podcasts a few times, and I'm excited to have him back. Dr. Spages, thank you so much for hanging out with me today.
Of course, Jeremy. Thank you. It's great seeing you. Love the shirt. Love your content. You're awesome, man. Thanks for having me.
So let me ask you this, because I know the thing that's interesting is you've really, kind of in the past 2 years changed your perspective on a lot of things health related. I'm interested to find out, how has your perspective changed in the last couple of years, and what are you really looking at now in terms of like what optimal health looks like?
Yeah, it's a great. First off, great question. And yeah, I've been doing natural health for over 20 years. I started when I was 5. No, I'm kidding. But doesn't have me age much, right? And I've noticed that since I've been doing this, it's become simpler for me. And the whole premise that my entire practice is run on is that the body is born to heal. Meaning that if we take two people and we cut one's hand, they should heal. And if we have a person who is alive and well, their body is healing and nothing is stopping them from healing. And now, really, it's obvious that our healthcare system, the system that insurances cover and what have you, it doesn't look at the underlying root problems. And it doesn't get rid of the blockages of what's making this person not heal. Because a person should be able to heal. That means their metabolism should be able to function. I work with a lot of type 2 diabetics. That's the large part of my practice. And there are all these things stopping them from healing and regulating their body. So what I've seen is that, we're going a little closer to better choices, right? I remember when I first started doing healthcare and I talked about being maybe gluten-free. You went to the grocery store, there was like literally one thing on the shelf, right? Like it was like...
Okay, I'm going to be really honest with you here. Just this is going to sound stupid, but when gluten-free became a thing, I think I was like 13 or 14, and I didn't realize the difference in spelling between gluten and glutton. So I'm like, oh, Mom, if you eat that, it's free. It's gluten-free. So can we eat that, Mom?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, continue. That is a true life story where my mother just stared at me in the grocery store when I was like 13.
Yeah, she's probably like, hey, listen, don't say anything else. Let's just leave the store. Just head to the car, right? Let's pay and let's leave, right?
Don't let the nice people hear you. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, exactly, right? So anyway, I remember when I first started this journey, 20 years ago, that I mentioned to people to be gluten free or whatever, and they went to the store and there was like a piece of cardboard with a nice label on it, and that's what you ate, right? That was the choice. And now now you go to the store and it's really interesting where now you have sections that are more conscious of health. Now when you go to the dairy section, it's like it's being overrun right now by almond milk, right? The milk aisle, the cow milk aisle is going smaller, and the almond milks and those sort of things are becoming more plentiful, and more people are becoming conscious due to the fact that our health insurance is not going to get us healthy. It is not designed to get us healthy and to be well. So, really what I've seen in my perspective over the years is it's gotten easier to identify really what needs to happen for somebody to get themselves better. And it always starts with obviously them having the motivation, the drive, and the passion to take responsibility for their health. And then really stay persistent on a course to getting themselves better.
Well, what's really interesting is, you look at kind of traditional medicine, and I think one of the biggest things and it's funny because I think of family members when I think of this, like, what did the doctor say? What did the doctor do? Like, it doesn't make you, I'm trying to think of a better way to put this, but it doesn't make you like causative as a patient, right? Like, it kind of makes you like very effect of what someone else does or says or anything else. And I think one of the biggest things I've learned from you is it's really important to like actually make somebody like understand their health and actually able to be like causative in their health.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's funny. I tell the patients all the time, I have a very, very successful practice, as you know, for a long time.
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting that I talk with patients and they're taking a lot of medication. You know, it's not uncommon in my office to see someone taking 11 pills, right? Diabetes, blood pressure, cholesterol, and they've been taking it for 10 years or 15 years or whatever. And it's kind of like, it's really weird because in my office, I'll see cases start lessening their medication with their doctor's help in a matter of weeks. And I'm just thinking, like, what are you doing for the last 10 years? Like, if the body is born to heal, why are you still on these meds? I just literally, before this interview, got a text message from a patient that just told me, like, like literally just before we got on, that their doctor just took them off all of their medication. And they were sick for over 10 years.
Wow.
And I'm just like, what are they doing for 10 years? And I just think I'll be honest. I think it's a corrupt system. I think
I think so too, because you also look at, like, you know, there's rewards for based on what they're prescribing and different things like that. And at the same time, like, it's much easier to put somebody on a pill than have them make a lifestyle change.
Without a question. Absolutely. Well, they also make it think as if, and most people just don't want to put Band-Aids on things, right? If their car tire is leaking, right, you could sit there all day and every day start pumping up that tire over and over and over again. But you have to still identify, like, well, why is it leaking, right? Like, if you don't plug the hole in that tire, you're not really getting anywhere. You're just literally just putting Band-Aids on things. And unfortunately, that's where a large part of our health care, or sick care, let's call it sick care in our country, is really identified with, you know. So yeah, it's and I think people want to get well. I don't think I think people are more in a place where they're questioning their doctor. Why am I on this med? Why am I doing this? And I know they're all sitting there like, I don't want to go to my doctor again and get another medication or increase another pill because they're not getting anywhere. They're not headed in the right direction.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think there's a very low percentage of people that kind of actually, you know, you've seen these people. They enjoy the experience of people kind of, you know, dawdling over them because they feel sick or whatever. There's a very low percentage of people that actually like that. I think most people do want to feel better. And I guess when we look at it, for you, like, how have you ended up looking at kind of diabetes as being a big portion of what's messing people up?
Yeah, you know, one of the top reasons, I don't know if I think you do know this story because I know we've spoke in the past and so forth. But one of the big things for me is my practice is really passion driven. I don't do this for a lot of reasons outside of really wanting to help somebody. Like, I really, really genuinely care.
Yeah.
And I remember as a child, my grandmother was diagnosed as a diabetic. And, you know, what they did, my aunt was a nurse at that time. She's retired now, and she would take care of my grandmother. And my grandmother made sure she got all her medication. She got this pill, that pill, this pill, that pill. And even when she did all of those things, she kept getting worse. And she got one medication after another medication after another. And eventually she got onto the last stage of where you are as a diabetic, and that's insulin. And I'll never forget when she started getting on insulin, it really just started going downhill. And I was I was a teenager at the time, and I just wasn't making sense of it. I'm like, she's under care of my aunt, who's a nurse, right? She's doing all the things her doctor's telling her to do. Why the heck is she still getting sick? Like, why is she still suffering? And then she wound up getting complications. Heart attack after heart attack, stroke after stroke. And I'll never forget, because she lived in Florida at the time. I was in Jersey, and you know, my mom would call and say, oh, you know, grandma had another heart attack. And I'm just like, what? And she had another stroke. And, you know, we would visit her at times of the year. And every time I saw her, it was like less of her, like less life. She would golf with my grandfather, who was a semi-pro, and she would do that a couple times a week. And now she was just confined to a couch.
Wow.
Because of her disease. And my big goal at that time was I wanted her to go to my high school graduation, right? Like, that was a big moment for me. I was excited. And she didn't make it. She actually died before my high school graduation. And
I'm sorry to hear that.
Thank you. Yeah, and I was so upset, kind of infuriated, because I'm like, she was watching her die. She was doing what they told her to do. I'm not a doctor. I'm 16, 17 years old. I'm like, what is going on? And, you know, it just always stuck with me as like a thorn. And, I kind of, not knowing what I'd be doing today, I was like, you know, if there's a way that I can help somebody, reverse their diabetes or lose weight by fixing really what's wrong or whatever.
Yeah.
That's where my passion just drove me, and that's why I do what I do, and that's why I love doing it, and that's why the large percentage of my practice is that, not because I can't help other conditions, it's just that I have a personal mission, so people don't have to go down that same path, and they don't have to die from a disease that maybe they could have gotten better from, and they could see the graduations and the birthday parties and the quality of life. They don't have to be confined to a couch like my grandmother did to just wait to die. Like, I don't think anybody should have to do that.
So I guess, what should we know that we don't know? Because I think when we look at it, and this is the thing that really bugs me, Dr. Spages, is you look at it and, first of all, you're never supposed to say you can cure anything unless you're giving somebody a pill, which is kind of wild to me. And but I think there's so much bad information out there because it makes somebody not able to do anything about it, right? Like, because they're like, so when we look at it, like, what should we know that we don't?
Yeah, good question. A couple things, I could summarize it in a few. Number one is, most of the information out there related to metabolism and diabetes is mostly a lie. And what they're doing is they are trying to treat the symptoms, and that's essentially where our healthcare system.
So before we pass by that, what does that mean? Because this is something I'm unaware of. Like, I'm aware of, like, your basal metabolic rate and things like that, but what does metabolism have to do with diabetes?
Well, diabetes is a broken metabolism, right? Your metabolism, the engine of your body, right?
Yeah.
So to say. So what they do with a person who's a diabetic, or even someone struggling with weight, is they'll say, "Hey, listen, watch what you eat." Right? We've heard this, right? We're both athletes and so forth. They also tell you to go lose some weight, right? Go exercise. That is the catch-all phrase for everybody,
right?
And there's $1 billion industry there. There's 100 different diets, or 100. There's probably 2,000 different diets. There's 2,000 different types of exercise programs, keto, this, whatever that. And, that could work early on in the disease process. The problem is that we all know people who have horrible diets, and they're thin, and they're not diabetic. Mm-hmm. We also know people who they eat perfect, right? They eat really good, just based on a normal, common sense way, and they can't lose an ounce of weight, and they are diabetic taking pills.
Yeah.
So I always look at beyond the diet. Well, how did they get there? I'll give you a for instance, right? I meet with women all the time that at some point of their life, their metabolism breaks, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's during when they first start getting their menstrual cycle when they're a teenager. Mm-hmm. And when the hormones go out of balance, they try, and they gain weight, they try to out-diet that. And there's no way you could out-diet that. And what they're doing is they're trying to diet and exercise over something broken. It's kind of like trying to build a house on a foundation that's off, right? It's just is not going to happen.
And that's so interesting, because I feel like that's the basic we never get to, right? And this is something like my wife will always say to me a lot, because there's a certain body type about it too. My wife will be like, oh, I think that person has hormonal issues. Like, they don't actually have a weight problem. But we don't actually look at those things.
Correct. Yeah, and I've met so many patients throughout the years that they struggle. I have one case in particular I'm thinking of, and she started gaining weight when she was a teenager. And this is the crazy part. This is going to answer your question. Like, it blew me away that I'll get to it in a second. But so anyway, she struggled with weight as a teenager. She was made fun of. She was body shamed. She became anorexic for about 10 years, that bad. She got pregnant, gained weight. She tried every diet you could think of. She's tried weight loss pills, fat camp. She did everything you could think of. Had another child, gained more weight. Eventually became a diabetic. Got on one med after another med after another med. And then eventually onto insulin. Starting going to liver failure, kidney failure. And then she met me. And I'm listening to her. And now she's in healthcare, by the way. She's not like a person who's not in healthcare. She actually works in healthcare. And I said to her, you go to your doctor. She's like, yep. And I was like, you do the things your doctor tells you. She's like, absolutely. I've tried this diet and that diet and this. And she did it like diligently. It wasn't like I did it for a week. She did it, as hard as she could. And I said, did anybody ever like figure out why you started gaining weight when you were a teenager? And she's like, no. And I was like, wait a second. So you've been struggling for close to 40 years and no one's ever looked at what made you gain weight in the first place? No, they just told me it's what I eat. And it's exercise more. And I do all that. I exercise 3 days a week. I eat like barely, any carbs. And I've been doing that for years and I still can't lose weight. So I said, has anybody ever looked at your hormones? And she was like, no. And I didn't know what reaction to have. I just started laughing. I'm like, and you go to your doctor, and no one ever thought of, hey, maybe your hormones are off. She's like,
You know what's wild about that too is I feel like the people that are in that condition, they eat so little too because they think that that's going to be the solution. That actually exacerbates the problem, right? Because then the body's like, I need more.
Well, here's the thing too, right? Like if you have a broken engine to a car, it doesn't really matter what fuel you put in the car. If your engine is broken, you could put the best gasoline in there. You could put the worst gasoline in there, which probably wouldn't be the right thing, but it's not going to fix a broken engine. Like you got to get the engine working. And this is a great example of a confusion because people are sitting there browbeating themselves like, oh, it's my diet. Oh, I didn't get celery flown in from Australia. It's like, no. It's like in my office, it's pretty ironic because patients lose 20, 30 pounds and your thing is crazy. I have them not exercise and I have them eating a lot of food. Mm-hmm. And they still consistently in my office lose a ton of weight. Mm-hmm. Why don't I have them exercise? Because their body can't handle it. There's so much resistance to getting sugar into the cells that exercise just exacerbates it. And it's like we go back to the
that's so interesting too because like you're aware of this. Like in my 20s I was a personal trainer for a long time.
You're like a bodybuilder, man. You're like ripped and you
but
still are. Look at you. After kids, I don't know how you do it.
But like one of the hardest things, man, is like I'd work with these people and I was in my 20s at the time. And like we would work out so hard and we'd do it consistently and you couldn't really get ahead. Like they were still huge, right?
Yep. Or they lose, but because you didn't fix the foundation, the first little slip they have, it's like everything comes back. And that is infuriating, frustrating. I mean, it is like so disappointing when someone goes through that struggle. It is so disappointing. And it's because they're just miseducated because everybody sits there as diet, exercise. Well, what do you do with the guy? Because I see this all the time. What do you do with the guy or the girl who is this thin? They are exercising, they're eating perfect, but yet they're dying from diabetes. What do you tell them to do? Because they already are a good weight. They already are exercising. They're eating, like some cases, like, oh my God, like more than I would even ask them if they were a patient in my office. But yet they're still dying of a disease. So there's always something beyond that. But the problem is that in our healthcare system, it's still practicing from like 1970, where, maybe there's new names of drugs, but the model and the approach is still the same. And, they're not really getting to the root issue. And the way they identify, and here's another lie that, we speak about, is if someone has a broken metabolism or someone is taking these medications, they are not healthy. Yeah. And a lot of times people go to their doctor, they get labs done, and they base the labs on this range. Like we use LabCorp, it's a big lab. And the range they have there is not a healthy range. It's just a long range. They just take a population of people and they just kind of create an average. And
I was even talking to a guest about this today. It's like even like the testosterone scale, right? Like the testosterone scale, like most people aren't even on the scale. So it's like, what's the point of the freaking scale?
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Right. It's kind of crazy. But what happens is people go to their doctor or whatever, and the doctor is like looking at the labs. Nothing shows up blinking with like red lights and like whatever. And they're like, you're healthy. And a lot of times patients tell me that they leave the office and they're like, well, if I'm healthy, why the heck am I taking all these drugs? Why am I overweight? Why do I have no energy? Why is my sex life out the window? Why can't I go to sleep at night, right? If I'm a picture of health, as they're saying, then why am I so sick? Mm-hmm. And what they're identifying health with is, are they alive? And if you use that as your parameter, it's a
very low barometer.
It's the entry level on that's pretty easy, right? I have to breathe to be above ground.
Putting a mirror in front of somebody's face. Yes, I see steam. We're good.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy. But that's the way they are. I'll say brainwashed, for a lack of a better way of saying it. That's the way they're brainwashed. They're brainwashed like, I'm really healthy, but I just have diabetes and blood pressure and I can't lose weight and blah, blah, blah. It's like, wait a second. That is the opposite of what health identifies with, right? You're not a picture of health. And really, the big wake-up call for most patients in my office is they don't really understand there's so much going on under the surface. I've never, and I've done this over 10,000 times successfully, and you know this about my success stories and such, is that I've never seen a person with a metabolic issue with a proper functioning liver. But the problem is most doctors don't run the labs, they don't look deep enough, and this person will continue to struggle and suffer. And you need to get all these things working. And if you look at a car, if you have 4 tires, you need all the tires fully inflated. Not one flat, the other one partially deflated, the one working. Like, you need all of them working in order for this health vehicle to drive forward. And it's just that in our society, healthcare wise, they're not looking deep enough. You know, they're not looking at the proper functioning of thyroid and liver and hormones like we spoke about. And this is really where the magic is. This is really what separates, you know, really what health is versus just not being really, really sick. And that's, there's a big distinction there, you know, and some people, you know, that I meet with that want to work with me, you know, they want to be healthy. They want quality of life. They want to be there for their children and grandchildren and be able to walk, you know, an amusement park without needing a cart. You know, they want that quality of life. They don't just want to wait to die and lose their limitations and things of that nature. And it's awesome because they work for it and they put their health and they start taking over their health. And there's hope. That's the biggest thing. There is actually hope. Whereas a lot of times when you have these chronic conditions like diabetes, there is no hope. They take pill after pill, drug after drug, go to their doctor, it's the next drug. As things get worse, it's another drug, another surgery. And it just doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to go down that path. People could actually get themselves better.
But I guess if you could tell people, you know, one thing is like, number one, we've talked about there's hope. Number two, we've talked about there's a cause and everybody seems to be missing the cause. But if you could tell people listening to this that are struggling one thing, like what would you leave them with?
You mean like a tip of advice or?
Like something that I think would enkindle that there is hope in them.
Yeah, I would say this. Your body is born to heal. Like you have the ability to heal. And if you could identify and start addressing the things that are blocking your ability to heal, then there's a chance you can get better. And that is probably the greatest thing ever. We have such a powerful way about us that our bodies, it takes a lot for us to actually get sick. It really does. We are genuinely really strong and able to survive this planet and our environment. But there are many things that stop us from doing it. And our world is different than where it was 100 years ago. We have artificial flavors and colors and toxic issues. And a lot of times, if you could kind of, I'll use the word detox, but it's not really detox, but if you could start getting rid of a lot of the things that could be making you sick, bad food, eating incorrectly, getting the body kind of detoxing itself the right way, a lot of those conditions and metabolic issues will improve. And that's actually what I start every patient on, regardless of what type of patient, is actually getting their body functioning. And ironically, it's funny we're doing an interview, I'm actually, every year I do a 21-day kind of like reset. And I'm doing it right now. And it's funny because like the year prior, I'm always like, I don't need it. My energy's good. I mean, you know me, I'm always like, go, go, go. And every year I'm like, I don't need it. I'll do it. And then like 5-6 days into it, I'm like, man, I feel so much better. Like, I'm like, why did I remember this last year or the year before? It's like I have amnesia every year. It's like, I kind of forgot how good I felt the previous year. So anyway, I would always recommend starting at that basis. Like do a deep cleaning, right? Everybody cleans the outside of their body every day. I would recommend always doing it an internal cleaning, right? Getting the internal things working, the liver, getting all the traffic jams inside the body, kind of getting them cleared out, and you'll see the body start getting better and going in the right direction. So that's probably the best tip of advice, because just trying to diet over things that are broken and exercise over things that are broken, it's a struggle.
Very cool. Well, where can our listeners find out more about you and what you're doing?
Yeah, so I don't know if you noticed, but I just got over 1 million views on YouTube. So
damn, that's awesome.
Yeah, someone's listening to me. I wish my kids listened to me that well, but Yeah, so I'm on YouTube. I'm on Facebook, obviously. My name is DRJ Spages. That's S in front of pages. And then on Instagram. And then I have my website also, which is drjspages.com. So yeah, there's a lot of free content on there for people to look at. I have obviously recipe books, things like that. I do have a whole program which clears out all of the organs, like I mentioned, that you don't have to be a patient in my office to do, which is exciting. Since I practice in Florida, I would obviously be limited to Florida helping people, but they could still do this on their own. It's self-guided. That's exactly what I'm doing right now for myself, and it's awesome. So a lot of resources out there for them that they could get all the information they need to get themselves better.
Very cool. Well, Dr. Jonathan Spages, thanks so much for coming back on today, man.
Yeah, thank you, Jeremy. It's great seeing you, and it's always a pleasure. You're just a superstar, and I love getting on these podcasts and even just connecting with you, man. I really, really appreciate it.
Oh, shucks. Thanks, man.